The doctor's words were quiet, but they hit me harder than any shout. "We've done all we can here, Mrs. Jones. Leo needs a heart specialist in America. Without the surgery, he is weeks, maybe a month." A month. My world, which had already shrunk to the size of this small hospital room in Kingston, suddenly got smaller. It was just me, the steady, cruel beep of the heart monitor, and the weight of a price tag I could never pay. My sweet Leo, his small chest rising and falling with the help of a machine, didn't know. He just knew his mama was there. My little girl, Maya, was with a neighbor, thinking her brother would be home soon. How do you tell a 5-year-old that a month is all you have left? Grief was a ghost that lived in my house. It had moved in the day I lost my husband, David, in the crash. But I couldn't afford to sit with it, to cry with it. Every bit of my energy went into finding a way, anyway, to keep my son alive. I sold David's car. I sold my wedding ring. I sold everything that held a memory until all I had left were the memories themselves, and they weren't worth a single dollar. "Mrs. Jones?" A nurse stood in the doorway, her face soft with pity. I hated that look. "There is a man here to see you. He says it's about your hospital bill." Hope is a dangerous thing. It flickered inside me, a tiny, weak flame. I followed her down the hall to a small, private waiting room. The man sitting there was not what I expected. He was dressed in a perfectly neat, dark suit, his skin the color of ivory, his black hair sharp and clean. He stood when I walked in, but his eyes were like chips of cold stone. "Mrs. Jones," he said. His voice was flat, with an accent I couldn't place. "My name is Rahul Rakesh. I am a lawyer." He didn't offer to shake my hand. He just motioned for me to sit. On the small table between us was a file. My name was on it. Leo's name was on it. He saw me looking at it and slid it just out of my reach. "My employer has taken an interest in your son's case," he said, watching my face for a reaction. "He is a generous man, but his generosity is not without conditions." I swallowed, my throat dry. "What conditions?" He leaned forward, his eyes scanning me from my worn-out shoes to the worry lines on my forehead. It didn't feel like he was seeing a grieving mother. It felt like he was inspecting a car before buying it. "My employer values privacy. He values loyalty. He needs to know who he is helping. Tell me about your husband." The question felt like a slap. "He's gone," I said, my voice tight.
"I'm aware.
"The accident.
Tell me about him."
Were you happy? What did this have to do with anything? "We were," I whispered, thinking of David's easy laugh. "Very happy. Any debts? Any complications? Anyone who might come looking for you? Or for money?" Each question was a sharp poke, digging into a wound that was still fresh. I felt my hands curl into fists in my lap.
"No."
"There's no one. It's just me and my children." He nodded slowly, as if ticking off a box on a list inside his head. He seemed satisfied. He looked down for a second, and my eyes caught a small, framed picture on the corner of the table he'd brought with him. He had placed it face down when I entered. For a split second, as he adjusted it, I saw the edge of the image, the dark hair of a woman, a tiny hand clutching her dress. He quickly covered it. The sight was strange, personal, and it made me even more confused. "Hey, my friend, hope you're doing well. Drop a comment and let me know how you're feeling about this story so far and where you're watching from." Some stories are too close to my heart to share on YouTube. I send those, along with little life lessons and surprises, to my email circle. If you'd like to be part of it, you can join with the link in the description. "My employer is prepared to cover the full cost of your son's transport to America," Rahul said, his voice pulling me back. "He will pay for the surgery. He will provide a place for you and your daughter to live during the recovery. He will take care of everything." The words were everything I had prayed for, but the way he said them made my skin crawl. This wasn't charity. This was something else. "Why?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Why would a stranger do all this? Before he could answer, the door opened. The man who walked in seemed to suck all the air out of the room. He was tall, with fair skin and light brown hair. But it was his eyes that held me. They were a deep, stormy gray, and they were filled with a sadness so profound it felt like looking into a deep, cold ocean.
He didn't look at me.
He looked at the wall just over my shoulder. "Is she suitable?" he asked Rahul, his American accent sharp and clear. His voice was low and carried an exhaustion that had nothing to do with being tired. Rahul nodded once. "She is." The man finally let his eyes drift to me. They held no warmth, no pity, just a blank, business-like assessment. "My name is Richard Davis," he said. "I will save your son's life, but in return, you will give me 30 days of yours." My heart hammered against my ribs. 30 days? What could he possibly want from me for 30 days? My mind raced through 100 horrible possibilities. He must have seen the fear on my face because a flicker of something, maybe annoyance, crossed his. "This is a contract, Mrs. Jones. A business arrangement." What business?" I stammered. He took a step closer, and for the first time, he looked directly into my eyes. The coldness in them was a wall of ice. He was a man completely locked away inside himself. "For the next 30 days, he said, his voice leaving no room for argument, "you will move to my home in America. You will stand by my side. You will smile when I tell you to smile. You will wear the clothes I provide for you and attend the events I require you to." I stared at him, my mind unable to piece it together. A wealthy man from another country wanted me, a poor widow from Kingston, to what? Play a part? It made no sense. This had to be some kind of cruel joke. He let the silence hang in the air, a heavy blanket of confusion and fear. He knew he had all the power. The beeping of Leo's heart monitor echoed in my mind. A month. That's what the doctor said. This man was offering me a lifetime for my son, and the price was a single month. I finally found my voice. "Why?" Richard Davis looked away again, his jaw tight. He glanced at Rahul, who gave a slight, almost invisible nod. He was giving him permission to tell me the truth. "To secure my company, the board of directors needs to see me as a stable man. A family man," he said, the words tasting like poison in his mouth. "And for that, I need a wife." He looked back at me, his gaze empty of all emotion. "You will be my wife for 1 month. It is a performance, nothing more. My son's life or my soul." That was the choice he put in front of me. I looked from Richard's cold, gray eyes to Rahul's unreadable face. There was no kindness here. There was no charity. This was a cage, and they were holding the key. But Leo's heart was failing. The rhythmic beep from his room down the hall was a clock, counting down the seconds I had left to save him. The choice was never a choice at all. "I'll do it," I whispered. The words tasted like ash in my mouth. My own happy marriage, my love for David, felt like a distant dream I was now being forced to betray. Richard gave a single, sharp nod. He had expected this. He had known I was a mother with no other options. "Rahul will handle the details," he said, and then he turned and walked out of the room, leaving me with the lawyer and the crushing weight of my decision. The next 24 hours were a blur. A private plane, bigger and more silent than any I had ever seen, was waiting. Leo was transported on a separate medical flight, a team of doctors watching over him. I was only allowed to see him for 5 minutes before he left. I kissed his warm forehead, his skin soft under my lips, and I promised him I'd see him soon. I promised him he would get better. It was a promise I had to keep, no matter the cost. Maya held my hand on the big plane, her eyes wide. She was too young to understand, but she could feel the tension. She felt my fear. "Mama, where are we going?" she asked, her small voice a pinprick in the thick silence. I looked across the aisle at Richard, who was staring out the window, his jaw set like stone. He hadn't spoken a word to me since I agreed. Rahul sat nearby, his laptop open, never looking up. They were a wall I couldn't get through. "We're going on an adventure, sweet girl," I told Maya, forcing a smile that felt like a crack in my face. "For Leo, to make him better." She accepted it because she trusted me. That trust was another sharp pain in my chest. The house was not a house. It was a fortress of glass and white stone perched on a hill, overlooking a city of endless lights. Inside, everything was cold and hard. The floors were a polished white that echoed our footsteps, making Maya and me seem small and out of place. There were no pictures on the walls, no books on the shelves. It was a home with no heart, just like the man who owned it. We were shown to a wing of the house. Not a room, a wing. It was bigger than my entire home back in Kingston. A woman with a stiff smile and a neat gray dress told me my new clothes had been provided. In the closet, racks of dresses and neat piles of sweaters replaced my simple, worn-out things. They felt like a costume for a person I didn't know. Rahul handed me a small, heavy box. Inside was a wedding ring. It was a band of white gold, cold and simple, with a diamond so large it looked fake. "You will wear this at all times," he said, his voice flat. "Richard will put it on your finger before the first event. Do not lose it." I slipped it on. It felt heavy, a shackle on my finger where David's simple gold band used to be. That night, I cried into a silk pillow that smelled of nothing, mourning a life that was gone and a life that was just beginning, both of them feeling like a kind of death. A few days passed in a strange quiet. I learned the rules. Don't speak to Richard unless spoken to. Don't go into the east wing of the house. Don't ask questions. My world became the sterile rooms of our wing, playing with Maya and waiting. I felt like a doll, taken out of its box only when needed. One evening, I was reading Maya a story on a long white sofa when Richard walked in. He stopped in the doorway, and for a moment, he just watched us. Maya was laughing, her head thrown back, her little braids bouncing. A strange look crossed his face. It wasn't sadness, not exactly. It was something older, something deeper. He took a step into the room. "My father used to say a house isn't a home until you hear a child laugh in it," he said, his voice softer than I'd ever heard it. I didn't know what to say. He looked lost, standing there in his perfect suit inside his perfect, empty house. "He collected things," Richard continued, his eyes drifting around the bare room. "Art, statues. He said they were investments, but he never bought anything that made him smile." He looked at me, then really looked at me. "You miss your husband?" It wasn't a question. The directness of it stole my breath. I could only nod, my throat tight. My father, he loved my mother. Too much, maybe. When she died, a part of him died with her. He built this company into an empire, but he never laughed again. He paused, the silence stretching between us. "The board thinks I'm like him. All business. They think I'm cold. That's why you're here. To prove them wrong." It was the most he had ever said to me. It wasn't an apology, but it was something. A small crack in the ice. For a moment, he wasn't just the billionaire who owned me. He was a man haunted by his own father's ghost. That moment of connection made the next night feel so much worse. It was the first event, a large dinner for the company's most important people. I was dressed in a deep blue gown that shimmered under the lights. My hair was styled. My face was painted. Richard put the ring on my finger in the car, his touch brief and impersonal. "Just smile and agree with whatever I say," he ordered. I felt sick with nerves. We walked into a grand ballroom filled with hushed whispers and curious stares. Richard's hand was a cold weight on the small of my back. He guided me to a table with two older, stern-looking men and their wives. "Gentlemen," Richard said, his voice smooth and confident, "I'd like you to meet my wife, Laura." One of the men, Mr. Sterling, smiled at me. "It's a pleasure. Richard, you kept this very quiet. Where did you two meet?" Richard's arm tightened around me. He smiled, a practiced, charming smile that didn't reach his eyes. "It's the best kind of story," he said, looking down at me as if he adored me. "I was on a trip to Jamaica, trying to get away from work. I saw her on the beach. She was building a sandcastle with her children. And I just knew." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. A beach in Jamaica. Building sandcastles. He was describing the day I met David. The exact memory. The one I held onto in the dark when I couldn't sleep. He had taken the most precious memory I had and twisted it into a lie for these strangers. He was stealing my past, my love, my entire life, and selling it for his company. My smile froze on my face. The room seemed to tilt. This wasn't a performance. He was erasing me. In his story, there was no David. There was only him. He had not just bought my future. He was taking my past, too. He glanced at me, expecting me to play along, to smile at the beautiful lie he had woven from the threads of my truth. In his eyes, I saw nothing.
No guilt. No remorse.
Just business. And in that moment, I understood. I wasn't his partner in a contract. I was just another one of his father's investments. I felt the blood drain from my face. My breath caught in my throat. He was smiling down at me, this stranger, this man who owned my son's future, and he was wearing my past like a costume. The warm Jamaican sun, the feel of gritty sand on my hands, David's laugh as he helped Maya pat down a lopsided tower. He had stolen it all. For a second, I thought I was going to be sick. The faces at the table blurred. All I could see were Richard's gray eyes, waiting, expecting me to play my part. Leo's face flashed in my mind, small and pale in that hospital bed. The beep of the monitor. A month. I forced the air back into my lungs. I made myself look at Mr. Sterling, a smile stretching my lips so tightly I thought my face would crack. He leaves out the best part, I said, my voice sounding distant, like it belonged to someone else. I reached out and put my hand on Richard's arm. His muscle was a hard knot beneath the fine fabric of his suit. He forgets to mention that my daughter's sandcastle was supposed to be a heart. For her brother. The lie was a bitter acid in my mouth, but it was mine. I had taken his story and twisted it back, weaving my truth, my Leo, into the very center of it. I was not just a woman on a beach. I was a mother fighting for her son. Richard's eyes flickered, just for a second. He hadn't expected that. A small, silent battle passed between us. The men at the table smiled, their hearts warmed by the story. A true romantic, Mr. Sterling's wife cooed. Mr. Sterling leaned forward, his expression sharp. A family man. That's good to see, Richard. It's what this company needs. Stability. We've been talking about the Davis Foundation. Your father's legacy. It's been dormant for too long. A new face, a family-focused initiative, it would do wonders for our image. He looked directly at me. A children's wing at the city hospital, perhaps? Funded by Mr. and Mrs. Davis. A public announcement at the gala next week would be perfect. Richard's jaw tightened. It was a trap. A test. A public announcement. Our names tied together forever in charity. It was no longer just a private arrangement. This would be a headline. A story. It was a cage made of good intentions, and the door was swinging shut. I think, Richard said slowly, his hand covering mine on his arm, his grip surprisingly firm, that is a wonderful idea. My wife and I would be honored. The ride back to the house was silent and cold. The air in the car was so thick with unspoken words, I felt like I was suffocating. I stared out at the blur of city lights, my own reflection a pale ghost in the glass. I had survived. But I had also tied the knot tighter around my own neck. When we got inside, I walked straight towards my wing, wanting only to check on Maya and hide in the dark. Not so fast. Richard's voice stopped me in the grand, empty hall. I turned. He stood under the harsh light, his face a mask of controlled anger. What you did in there, he said, his voice low and dangerous, was reckless. You went off script. You stole my life. The words burst out of me, louder than I intended, echoing in the sterile space. You took my most precious memory of my husband, and you wore it like a cheap suit to impress those men. Did you think I would just smile and thank you for it? I think you'll do what the contract says, a calm voice interjected. Rahul stepped out from a side corridor, his tablet in his hand. He had been listening. The story was researched. It was chosen for its emotional appeal. Your addition was an unnecessary risk. A risk? I laughed, a raw, broken sound. My son is lying in a hospital bed waiting for a new heart, and you're worried about a risk? Rahul's face didn't change, but something in his eyes softened for a fraction of a second. He took a step closer. Mrs. Jones, everything has a cost. Every choice. I know that better than anyone. He hesitated, his gaze dropping to the floor. My wife, she was sick. A long time ago. I made a deal to save her. I took a job I didn't want, working for a man I didn't respect. Richard's father. The confession hung in the air between us. Richard looked away, his expression pained. He paid for her treatment. Rahul continued, his voice quiet, almost a whisper. And in return, I helped him build this empire. I worked day and night. I missed my daughter's first steps. I missed my wife's last breath. She died anyway, and all I had left was the job. He looked up, his eyes meeting mine. I protect Richard because his father's legacy is a poison. And those men at that table, men like Sterling, they want him to become his father. Cold, ruthless, alone. Your job isn't just to play a wife. It's to show them he is something better, that he has a heart, even if it's a lie. The world tilted again. This cold, hard man was trapped, too, haunted by a ghost of his own. I looked at Richard, really looked at him, and saw not a billionaire tycoon, but the sad little boy who grew up in the shadow of a man who never smiled. Why that story? I asked Richard, my anger draining away, replaced by a hollow ache. Out of all the lies you could have told, why that one? He finally met my gaze. The ice in his eyes seemed to crack. Because it was real, he said, his voice raw. Rahul's team found it. A post you made on a community page years ago, for a memorial. You wrote about the day you met your husband. The sandcastle. The heart. He swallowed hard. I read it, and I thought, a love like that. That's what they want to see. I didn't think, he trailed off, unable to finish. He didn't think about what it would do to me. For the first time, I saw a flicker of the man behind the wall. A man so disconnected from real emotion that he had to steal someone else's. A man who recognized a beautiful love story but had no idea how to write one of his own. We have a problem, Rahul said, breaking the spell. He turned his tablet towards us. A news headline was already online. Billionaire Richard Davis reveals secret wife and pledges millions to City Hospital. There was a picture of us at the table, Richard's hand on mine, both of us smiling our fake smiles. Sterling leaked it already, Rahul said. The announcement is next week. The media requests are already flooding in. A sit-down interview. A photo shoot. They want the happy couple. The lie was alive now. It was growing, breathing, and it was dragging me with it. Richard looked at me, his face grim. The battle was over. Now, we had a war to fight, and the only person he could trust to fight it with him was me. We give them what they want, Richard said, his voice firm, a commander laying out a plan. We do the interview. We do the photo shoot. We practice. Every day. We build them a story so perfect, so believable, they will have no choice but to accept it. He was looking at me, but he was talking to both of us. An alliance was being formed, not out of affection, but out of desperation. He needed my warmth, my story, my heart. And I needed his money, his power, his cold determination. Okay, I whispered, nodding. Okay. For Leo. I would do anything for Leo. Even if it meant helping this broken man build a beautiful cage around the both of us, and convincing the entire world it was a home. The days that followed were a blur of training. Rahul turned the large, empty living room into a stage, and I was his lead actress. He would drill me for hours. What is Richard's favorite color? He'd snap. Blue? I'd answer, my voice flat.
Wrong.
It's the color of the sea just before a storm. Be specific. Be romantic. Richard would stand by, watching, his face unreadable. We built a life out of lies, piece by piece. We decided on a fake first date, a fake proposal, a fake wedding. He chose a small, private ceremony on a cliff in California. No guests, no records, just us, he said, looking at me. It felt like a confession. His real life was just as lonely as our fake one. Sometimes he would take over the questioning. What did you say? He asked one afternoon, his voice low. When I asked you to marry me? Rahul was on the other side of the room, on the phone. It was just the two of us. I looked at Richard, at the exhaustion in his gray eyes. I remembered David, kneeling on our little porch in Kingston, holding a ring made of a seashell. My throat closed up. I said it was about time, I whispered. A small, sad smile touched Richard's lips. That's good, he said. We'll use that. He knew it wasn't for him. He knew I was somewhere else, in another life. He didn't push. He just let the memory hang in the air between us, a ghost we both pretended not to see. The photo shoot was scheduled for the end of a week. They brought in racks of clothes, soft sweaters, and simple dresses in warm colors. They wanted us to look like a real family. The photographer, a woman with kind eyes and a sharp tongue, arranged us on a cream-colored sofa. I want to feel the love, she said, waving her hands. Richard, put your arm around her. Laura, lean into him. Look at him like he's the only man you've ever seen. I did as I was told. I leaned my head against his shoulder. He was stiff, a statue of a man. But his arm around me was surprisingly warm. He smelled of clean soap and something faintly like rain. I could feel the steady beat of his heart through his shirt, a rhythm just as constant as the monitor on Leo's machine. We were both just trying to keep a heart beating. Maya, dressed in a little yellow dress, grew tired of the game. She wriggled off my lap and ran to the large glass door, pointing outside.
A bird, Nana.
A red bird. I smiled, a real smile for the first time all day. Richard looked over at her, and the hard lines of his face softened. He watched her for a long moment, a strange, hungry look in his eyes. It was the look of a man starving for something he didn't know he wanted. The photographer's camera clicked, capturing it. Perfect, she breathed. That's the one. Later that day, I got the call I had been dreading. It was Leo's doctor. I took the phone into the bathroom and locked the door, my hand shaking. His body is fighting the anti-rejection medication we've started him on, the doctor said, his voice calm and professional. It made the news sound even scarier. It's not unusual, but it adds a layer of complication. The surgery will be riskier. We need to run more tests before we can proceed. I sank to the cool tile floor, the world spinning around me. Riskier. Complication. The words were hammers, pounding against my hope, cracking it into 1,000 tiny pieces. I was playing house in a palace of lies while my son, my real life, was fighting for every breath. I ended the call and pulled my knees to my chest, choking back a sob. I couldn't fall apart.
Not now.
When I came out, Richard was standing in the hall. He must have seen my face. What is it? He asked. What's wrong? It's Leo, I said, my voice breaking. There are complications. He didn't say he was sorry. He didn't offer empty words of comfort. He just looked at me, his own pain reflecting in his eyes. They're the best doctors in the world, Laura, he said, his voice firm, a solid rock in my swirling sea of fear. I vetted every single one of them myself. Your son is getting the best care that exists. He will be all right. It wasn't a platitude. It was a promise. A statement of fact from a man who dealt only in facts. And for some reason, it helped more than any hug or kind word could have. I looked at him, at this man who had bought my life, and I felt a strange flicker of gratitude. He was my captor, but he was also, in that moment, my protector. 2 days later, the photos were released. Rahul showed them to us on his tablet. There we were, the perfect family. Richard's arm around me, my head on his shoulder, and the one the photographer had loved, the candid shot. Richard and I were looking at Maya, who was pointing at something outside the frame. We were both smiling small, soft smiles. We looked real. We looked happy. It's working, Rahul said, a hint of surprise in his voice. The board is pleased. Sterling sent a message. He said, it's good to see the Davis heart is still beating. He looked from me to Richard. The interview is next. A live television broadcast. If we get through that, we might just secure the vote. A wave of relief washed over me. It felt like we had passed a huge test. Maybe we could do this. Maybe this whole nightmare would end, and I could go back to my real life with my healthy son. Richard caught my eye, and for the first time, he offered me a genuine, unguarded smile. It changed his whole face, erasing years of sadness. I found myself smiling back. We had done it. Together. The moment was shattered when Rahul's phone buzzed. He looked down, his face going pale. He didn't say a word. He just turned the phone around for us to see. It was a website, a small news blog from back home in Jamaica. The headline was a gut punch. Kingston's grieving widow finds love with mystery American billionaire. Below it was a picture of me and David on our wedding day. He was beaming, his arm wrapped tightly around my waist. I was laughing, my head thrown back in pure joy. We were so young, so happy, so unaware of the tragedy that was waiting for us. Someone was digging into my past. They were looking for the truth.
How?
I whispered, my blood turning to ice. Sterling, Richard said, his voice a low growl. The brief warmth was gone, replaced by a familiar cold fury. This is his real test. He's not just watching us perform. He's actively trying to break us. He's telling us that he knows it's a lie, and he's daring us to make him believe it. I stared at the picture of my dead husband, his smiling face, now a weapon being used against me, against my son. This wasn't just about a company anymore. This was personal. This powerful, faceless man was trying to destroy me, to expose my desperation to the world. And the biggest test, the live interview where the entire world would be watching, was just days away. Panic was a cold hand gripping my throat. That picture of David and me, so full of life, was now a ghost haunting every screen. Richard paced the length of the hall, his movements sharp and angry, like a caged animal. He wasn't angry at me. He was angry at the game, at Sterling, at the invisible strings pulling us all. Rahul was a machine of efficiency, his fingers flying across his phone, making calls, sending messages, trying to kill the story before it could grow legs and run. It's too late, he finally said, looking up, his face grim. It's been picked up by bigger sites. They're asking questions. Who is David Jones? We need a story, Richard said, stopping in front of me. He looked at me, his gray eyes searching mine. The fury was gone, replaced by a strange, fierce focus. We need a better one than they can find. Not a lie, Laura. A version of the truth. We'll tell them about David. We'll tell them he died. We'll say I met you in your grief, that I helped you heal. We'll make our story a story of hope, not a secret. It was brilliant. It was honest in a way. It took Sterling's weapon and turned it into a shield. But it meant I had to talk about David. On live television, I had to offer up my deepest pain for public display, to save Richard's company, to save Leo. I can't, I whispered, shaking my head. Yes, you can, he said, his voice dropping, becoming soft. He took a step closer, close enough that I could see the flecks of a darker gray in his eyes. You are the strongest person I have ever met. You will do this, and I will be right there with you. The night before the interview, I couldn't sleep. I found myself in the kitchen, a cavern of dark steel and marble, staring at the city lights. I heard a soft footstep and turned. Richard stood in the doorway, wearing simple gray pants and a white shirt. He wasn't a billionaire. He was just a man who couldn't sleep. He walked over and stood beside me, not speaking. We watched the river of light flow through the dark city. My mother loved to paint, he said quietly, his voice filling the silence. Not on canvases. On the walls. When I was a boy, she painted a jungle scene in my bedroom, with monkeys and bright red birds. My father hated it. He said it was childish. After she was gone, he had it painted over.
White.
Like the rest of the house. He looked at me, a deep sadness in his eyes. Sometimes, when the light hits the wall just right, I think I can still see the outline of a monkey's tail. My heart ached for that little boy in his white room. I reached out, my fingers barely brushing the back of his hand. It was an impulse I couldn't stop. He didn't pull away. Instead, he turned his hand over and gently took mine. His fingers laced through mine, warm and firm. Thank you, he whispered, for bringing a little color back into this house. We stood there for a long time, holding hands in the dark, Two lonely people finding a strange comfort in a world of lies. It felt real. For the first time, something in this cold, calculated arrangement felt completely, terrifyingly real. My heart beat faster, not with fear, but with something else. Something I had not felt since David. The next day, we were in a small room backstage, the muffled sound of a studio audience filtering through the walls. The interview was in 10 minutes. I felt sick. Maya was with a nanny Richard trusted, safe in the house. Leo was in his hospital room, his little heart waiting. I twisted David's old ring, which I now wore on a chain around my neck, hidden under my dress. Richard sat beside me on a small sofa. He saw my hands trembling. He reached over and placed his hand over mine, stilling them. "We do this, and it's over," he said, his voice a low promise. "Leo gets a surgery. You and Maya are safe. 30 days. We're almost there." He squeezed my hand. "I'm with you." I looked into his eyes and believed him. I trusted him. Rahul came in, his face tight with stress. 5 minutes. "Richard, I need to go over the final holding statement for the press release." He handed Richard a tablet. Richard took it, but as he did, Rahul stumbled slightly on a cable, and another tablet he was carrying slipped from under his arm, clattering onto the floor by my feet. "Sorry," Rahul muttered, bending to pick it up. But my eyes had already seen it. The screen was lit up. It was a document, an official-looking report. At the top, in bold letters, was a company name, Davis Industries Freight Division. And below that, a name that made the air leave my lungs. David Jones.
And a date.
The date of the accident. My blood went cold. I stared at the screen, my mind refusing to understand what I was seeing. A settlement offer. A confidentiality agreement. Words swam before my eyes. A Davis Industries truck. A faulty brake line. A driver who fell asleep. The world went silent. The muffled noise of the audience, Richard's voice, Rahul's apologies. It all faded into a dull roar. The truck that hit David's car. The truck that killed him. It was one of Richard's. I looked up from the tablet, my eyes finding Richard's.
He had seen me see it.
The blood drained from his face. The trust, the warmth, the connection we had built in the dark kitchen, it all evaporated, turning to ash. "You knew," I whispered. The words were small, broken things in the silent room. Rahul froze, his hand halfway to the tablet. "Laura," Richard started, his voice strained. "You knew," I said again, louder this time, my voice shaking with a rage so deep and cold it burned. "This whole time, you knew." He didn't answer. He couldn't. His silence was a confession. He hadn't just stumbled upon my case. He hadn't chosen me by chance out of some file of hardship cases. He had targeted me. This wasn't a random act of business. This was a cover-up. Atonement. Blood money. He wasn't saving my son out of a twisted sense of charity. He was paying me off. Paying for my silence. Paying for my husband's life with my son's. It was a legal matter, Rahul said quickly, his voice sharp. We offered a settlement to the estate. It was refused. When your son's case came to our attention through the Foundation's watch list, Richard saw an opportunity to help in a more direct way.
To help.
I felt a wild, terrible laugh bubble up in my chest. You think this is help? You let me believe this was a contract. A business arrangement. You stood there and you stole the story of how I met my husband, the man your company killed, and you used it as a marketing tool. My entire world had been a lie, not just the past few weeks. My understanding of everything. My grief, my struggle, my desperation. He had watched it all, knowing he was the cause of it. The memory of his hand holding mine in the kitchen made my skin crawl. It hadn't been comfort. It had been deception. A woman with a headset peeked into the room. 2 minutes, Mr. Davis. Richard looked at me, his face a wreck of guilt and desperation.
Laura, please.
We can talk about this after. Right now, you have to go out there. Go out there? I stood up, my body trembling. And do what? Sit next to you? Smile? Tell the whole world that the man who killed my husband is my savior? You didn't save my family, Richard. You destroyed it. The beeping of Leo's heart monitor echoed in my head. His life was still in this man's hands. This man who had taken everything from me. If I walked away, if I exposed him, he would let my son die. I was trapped. He had built me a cage, not of gold, but of my own love for my child. He knew it. He saw the war in my eyes. Lara, he said, his voice breaking for the first time. Whatever you think of me, Leo is innocent in all this. Don't let him pay for my mistakes.
He was right.
And that was the cruelest part of all. My son's life was chained to my silence. The woman with the headset appeared again. It's time. I looked at Richard, the man I had started to trust, the man I had almost let into my heart. I saw him for what he was, a ghost, just like his father, living in a house of white walls, painting over the truth. He was a poison, and I had let him in. I took a deep breath, the air burning my lungs. I smoothed down my dress. I walked past him, towards the bright lights of the stage, my face a perfect, blank mask. I could feel him walking behind me. We were going out there to sell the world our beautiful story of love and hope. And I was going to have to sit there, next to my husband's killer, and smile as if my heart wasn't breaking into a million pieces. The applause felt like waves of heat washing over my numb skin. The lights were so bright, I couldn't see the faces in the audience, just their dark shapes. I sat on a plush sofa that felt more like a trap, a smile glued to my face. Beside me, Richard was a stranger made of ice and lies. The host, a woman with unnaturally white teeth, leaned towards us. So, Richard, she said, her voice dripping with warmth, the world is stunned. You've kept this beautiful woman a secret. Tell us everything. Richard laughed, a smooth, practiced sound. He placed his hand on my knee. I wanted to scream. I wanted to pull away, but I was frozen. Leo's face, pale and trusting, was all I could see behind my eyes. I had to do this. Sometimes the best things in life are the ones you fight to keep private, he said, looking at me with those stormy gray eyes. I saw the desperate plea in them. Asterisk, play along. Please. Asterisk, he launched into the story we had practiced, the story of a man who found love when he least expected it. He spoke of my strength, my spirit, the light I brought into his life. Every word was a lie, polished until it shone, and every word was a nail in my husband's coffin. The host turned to me. Lara, your story is incredible, but we understand there's also been tragedy. There are reports about your late husband. This was it, the moment we had prepared for. The moment to take Sterling's weapon and turn it into our shield. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic, trapped bird. I could feel Richard's tension beside me, a low hum of anxiety. I was supposed to say my lines. I was supposed to talk about healing, about finding a second chance at happiness. I looked at the camera, the little red light that meant millions of people were watching. I thought of David, his easy laugh, the way he held my hand. And then I thought of the truck, of the cold, official report on Rahul's tablet. My husband, David, I began, my voice clear and steady, surprising even myself, was the love of my life. He was a good man, a good father. I took a breath. I could not say the lie. I could not. He was killed in an accident.
A terrible, senseless accident.
A company truck ran a stop sign. The driver was overworked. The brakes were bad. I felt Richard flinch beside me. His hand tightened on my knee, a warning. I ignored it. When you lose someone like that, I continued, my eyes locked on the camera, on the unseen faces, on Sterling, wherever he was watching, your world it ends. You're left with nothing but pieces. And you have to find a reason to pick them up. I turned my head and looked directly at Richard. The fake smile was gone from my face. Richard found me among those pieces. He gave me a reason. He offered my son, Leo, a future that was stolen from my husband. The host's face was a mask of sympathetic concern. The audience was silent. I had not broken the story, but I had cracked it wide open. I had told a truth inside the lie, a truth that only 3 people in the world would fully understand. I had just declared war on live television. The ride back to the fortress of glass and stone was dead silent. I stared out the window, watching the world fly by, feeling nothing. The storm was coming. When the car stopped, I got out and walked inside without waiting for him. I didn't get far. What was that? Richard's voice was a low growl behind me, echoing in the huge, empty hall. I spun around to face him. The numbness was gone, replaced by a fire that burned away my fear. That was the truth, I spat. Or did you not recognize it? You've been living with lies for so long. You put everything at risk. Our entire agreement. Your agreement. I screamed, my voice raw. This was never my agreement. This was your dirty secret, your blood money. You let me grieve for my husband without ever telling me you were the reason I was a widow. You watched me sell my wedding ring. You watched me cry in a hospital, knowing your money, your truck, your company did this to us. I was trying to fix it, he shouted back, his face pale with fury and guilt. I found out about the accident weeks after it happened. A report came across my desk. I saw your picture. I saw your children. I couldn't just sign a check and send it to a lawyer. I wanted to help. Help. I laughed, a broken, ugly sound. You call this help? You buried your crime under a contract. You made me a part of your cover-up. You're just like him, aren't you? Just like your father. Painting over anything you don't want to see, pretending it isn't there. You didn't paint over a monkey on a wall, Richard. You painted over my husband's life. The words hit him like a physical blow. He staggered back, the anger draining from his face, leaving only a hollow, haunted look. He had no defense against that. It was the one truth he could not deny. It's done. Rahul's voice cut through the tension. He walked towards us from the corridor, his phone in his hand, his face like stone. Sterling called me the second we were off the air. He said the interview was a masterpiece of manipulation. He looked at me, not with anger, but with a kind of weary respect. He knows it's a lie. He's just angrier better at it than he is. So what happens now? Richard asked, his voice barely a whisper. Rahul stopped in front of us. He's given us a final move. The gala for the Davis Foundation is in 2 days. You will both be there. You will get on stage together. You will announce the new children's wing for the hospital. You will smile, you will hold hands, and you will look like the future of this company. You will be unbreakable. I stared at him. And if I don't? Rahul's dark eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of pity in them. Then he releases the full accident report to every major news outlet. He'll include the internal investigation on the faulty brake line. He'll include the settlement you were never offered. He will paint Richard as a monster who covered up a death to protect his company, and you as the grieving widow he bought off. Richard will be destroyed. The board will oust him. And the first thing they will do to clean up the mess, he said, his voice dropping, is cancel all non-essential charitable projects, including the funding for a very expensive, very risky heart surgery for a little boy from Jamaica. The room went silent. The air was thin. There was no way out. Every door led to a cliff. I could stand by David's killer and save my son, or I could fight for David's honor and let Leo die. It was a choice that would tear my soul in two, no matter which path I took. I looked at Richard, at the broken man standing in his father's empty house. I felt nothing for him.
No anger, no pity.
Just a vast, hollow emptiness. Stay away from me, I whispered, the words like chips of ice. Don't speak to me.
Don't look at me.
I will see you at the gala. I turned and walked away, my footsteps echoing on the polished floor. I didn't stop until I was inside my wing, the door clicking shut behind me. I went to Maya's room. She was asleep, her small face peaceful, one arm thrown over a stuffed bear. I brushed a curl from her forehead, my hand shaking. She was so innocent. She knew nothing of the ugly world I was fighting through for her brother. I sat on the floor by her bed for what felt like hours, just watching her breathe. Her life, Leo's life, it was all that mattered. My pain, my grief for David, my broken heart, they were luxuries I couldn't afford. They were weights I had to drop if I wanted to carry my children to safety. Finally, I stood and went into my own room. The large diamond ring on my finger felt like it was burning my skin. I pulled it off. Then, I reached under my dress and unclasped the thin gold chain from around my neck. David's simple wedding band slid into my palm.
It was still warm from my skin.
I held it tight in my fist, the last piece of him, the last piece of my old life. I could feel the worn edges, the memory of his hand in mine. I walked to the dresser and opened a small wooden box where I kept the few things that were truly mine. I placed David's ring inside, nestled on a piece of soft cloth. Then I closed the lid. The click was a final, terrible sound. A burial. I had made my choice, and a part of me had just died with it. The 2 days that followed were a silent, cold war. We lived in the same house, but on different planets. I stayed in my wing, building block towers with Maya, my laughter for her a hollow echo in my own ears. I spoke only to Leo's doctors on the phone, their cautious updates about stabilizing him for surgery, the only thing anchoring me to the world. I ate the food left on a tray outside my door. I never saw Richard. I never saw Rahul. I felt their presence like a drop in temperature, a shadow passing the doorway. The big house had never felt more like a prison, and the silence was my cellmate. I was a ghost haunting my own life, waiting for the moment I would have to stand beside the man who made me a widow and perform the greatest lie of all. The night of the gala arrived like a death sentence. A woman I'd never seen before came to help me dress. The gown was the color of a midnight sky, simple and severe. It felt less like a dress and more like armor. As she did my hair, pinning it up in a way that felt foreign and tight, I looked at my reflection. My mahogany skin looked pale under the bright lights. The woman painted my face, giving me lips I didn't recognize and eyes that looked back at me with a stranger's sorrow. But beneath the paint, beneath the grief, something else was stirring. A cold, hard resolve. I thought of David. I had spent these last weeks treating his memory like a fragile thing, something to be protected from this ugly new world. But David was never fragile. He was strong. His love wasn't a cage of memory. It was the foundation of my life. He had loved me enough to last a lifetime. That love was not a weakness for Richard to exploit or for me to mourn. It was my power. It was the fire I would use to burn this whole rotten charade to the ground. I wasn't betraying him by saving our son. I was finishing the job we started together. I was being the woman he had always believed me to be. By the time the woman was finished, the face in the mirror was no longer a victim. It was a queen. Richard was waiting at the bottom of the stairs. He wore a dark suit, and he looked like he hadn't slept in 2 days. The confidence was gone, replaced by a deep, weary guilt. When he saw me, he flinched, as if my presence was a physical pain. We rode in the back of a silent car, the city lights painting streaks across the divider between us. "Laura," he finally said, his voice rough. "I am so sorry. For everything. I never." "Don't," I said, my voice sharp and cold. I did not look at him. I looked at my own reflection in the dark glass. "Don't you dare say you're sorry to me now. Your words mean nothing. Your money, however, means my son gets to live. That is the only transaction we have left. Get me through this night. Get Leo his heart. And then I will be gone from your life, so fast you'll wonder if I was ever here at all." He fell silent. The rest of the ride was a dead space between two enemies forced into an alliance. The gala was a sea of glittering jewels and fake smiles. Cameras flashed, their light like tiny explosions against my eyes. Richard's hand was on my back, a cold, formal weight. I could feel his tremor. He was terrified. I was not. I felt a strange, icy calm settle over me. We were led to a table at the front of the grand ballroom. Across the room, I saw him, Mr. Sterling. He sat like a king on a throne, watching us, a small, satisfied smile on his lips. He raised his glass to me in a silent toast. He thought he had won. He thought I was a pawn in his game. He had no idea I was about to flip the whole board over. The evening dragged on. Speeches were made. Money was pledged. Finally, the host called us to the stage. And now, a few words from the new face of the Davis Foundation and the man of the hour, Richard Davis, and his beautiful wife, Laura. We walked up the steps into the blinding white light. Richard moved to the microphone, his hands shaking as he pulled a piece of paper from his pocket. He began to read his prepared speech, his voice strained. He spoke about his father's legacy, about corporate responsibility. He announced the new children's wing. He was a puppet saying his lines, his eyes darting towards Sterling, seeking approval. Then he turned to me. My wife, Laura, would also like to say a few words. I stepped forward. The microphone was cool under my fingers. I looked out at the blur of faces. I could feel Richard's panic beside me. I could feel Sterling's smug victory from across the room. Good evening, I said, my voice ringing out, clear and strong. I didn't need a piece of paper. My speech was written on my heart. My name is Laura Jones. Richard is right. His father left a legacy. But a legacy isn't just about money or buildings. It's about the lives you touch and the lives you break. A hush fell over the room. I saw Rahul at the side of the stage, his face unreadable. I've spent the last month in a world I don't understand, I continued, but I know what it's like to sit by a hospital bed, praying for a miracle. I know what it's like when your child's life has a price tag. A true foundation, a true legacy, isn't about photo opportunities or big announcements. It's about responsibility. It's about looking at the damage that has been done and making it right, no matter the cost. I looked directly at Sterling, my eyes burning into his. It's about making sure no other mother has to make the choices I have. As I spoke, the large screen behind us, which was supposed to be showing an artist's drawing of a hospital, flickered. It went dark, and then a new image appeared.
It was a press release.
The headline was huge. Richard Davis steps down as CEO, will take over Davis Foundation in restructuring. Victims Fund announced as first initiative. A collective gasp went through the ballroom. My eyes flew to Rahul. He was looking at the screen, his expression calm, almost serene. He hadn't just double-crossed Sterling. He had double-crossed everyone. He hadn't saved the company. He had saved the man. The press release on the screen told the whole story. It mentioned a tragic accident involving a Davis Industries vehicle. It announced a full, independent investigation. It named me, Laura Jones, and my late husband, David. And it detailed a new fund, personally overseen by Richard, to provide for any family ever harmed by the company's actions. Rahul had taken Sterling's blackmail and turned it into an act of public redemption. Sterling was on his feet, his face purple with rage. Board members were whispering frantically. Richard stood beside me, staring at the screen, his face a mask of disbelief. He had just lost his father's empire. He had lost everything he thought he was fighting for. He looked at Rahul, who met his gaze and gave a single, solid nod. A silent message passed between them. I have set you free. Richard turned and looked at me. The guilt, the fear, the anger, it was all gone. In his eyes, I saw the little boy whose mother had painted monkeys on his wall.
He was no longer a CEO.
He was no longer his father's son. He was just a man, stripped of his power, finally able to breathe. He had lost everything, but in that moment, he looked like he had won. The room erupted into chaos, but on the stage, there was a strange pocket of silence. My impossible choice had been taken from me. Rahul had found a third way. Leo was safe. David's memory was honored. I had not had to choose. Richard reached for my hand. His fingers, no longer trembling, closed around mine. His touch wasn't for a camera. It wasn't part of a contract. It was real. The 30 days were not over, but our deal was. In the middle of the wreckage of his life, under the glare of 1,000 eyes, he leaned in close, his voice a whisper only I could hear. Thank you. We were swept off the stage in a blur. Security guards formed a wall around us, pushing through a storm of flashing lights and shouted questions. I saw Mr. Sterling's face, twisted with fury, as he was held back by his own people. Richard's hand never left mine. It was an anchor in the chaos, the one solid thing in a world that had just exploded. We were rushed through a back corridor, down a service elevator, and out into the cool night air where a different car was waiting, its engine already running. Rahul was already in the front seat. The doors slammed shut, and the noise of the world was cut off, leaving only the sound of our breathing in the dark. I finally let go of Richard's hand and slid to the far side of the leather seat. The silence in the car was heavy, but it wasn't the angry, cold silence from before. It was the quiet after a storm, when the air is clean and you can finally see the stars. I looked at Richard. His head was leaned back against the seat, his eyes closed. He looked younger, the deep lines of stress around his eyes seeming to have vanished. He had just lost an empire, and he looked like he had just been let out of prison. He opened his eyes and turned to look at me. "He's safe, Laura," he said, his voice quiet.
"Le."
"Whatever happens now, the funding for his surgery is locked." It was the first thing Rahul did. "It's in a trust that no one can touch." That was my only condition. My breath caught in my throat. After everything, his first thought had been for my son.
For me.
"Thank you," I whispered, and this time, the words were not a transaction. They were a truth. We didn't speak again until we were back in the big, empty house. The three of us stood in the grand hall, the silence echoing around us. It no longer felt like a fortress or a stage. It just felt like a house waiting for a family. "Why, Rahul?" Richard asked, his voice filled with a weary wonder. "You spent your whole life protecting my father's company. You told me to become him. Why burn it all down?" Rahul looked from Richard to me. The stone mask he always wore was gone. In its place was a man I had never seen before, a man with 20 years of pain in his eyes. He walked over to a small side table and picked up the little framed picture he'd had at our first meeting in Kingston, the one he had kept hidden. He turned it around. It was a picture of him, much younger, with a smiling woman whose dark hair was blowing in the wind. A little girl sat on his shoulders, her tiny hands holding his face. "This was my family," Rahul said, his voice thick. "Before I had a job. Before I had a purpose." He looked at Richard. "You think your father's legacy was the company. It wasn't. His real legacy was the lives he ruined to build it. My wife didn't just get sick, Richard. She grew up in a town called Miller's Creek, a town where Davis Industries ran a chemical plant for 40 years, a town with a cancer rate 5 times the national average." The blood drained from Richard's face. "No," he whispered. "My father, he donated to those towns. He built community centers. He paid them to be quiet," Rahul said, his voice hard as steel. "He settled with families, one by one, with non-disclosure agreements that buried them and their pain forever. He paid for my wife's experimental treatments on one condition, that I come work for him, that I use my mind to protect the very company that poisoned her. He owned me, he owned her life, and then he owned her death." My hand flew to my mouth. The story he had told me about missing his wife's last breath for his job was so much worse than I had imagined. "I made her a promise on the day she died," Rahul continued, his eyes burning with a fire I finally understood. "I promised her I would find a way to make it right. Not with money, with justice. I spent 2 decades inside that company, collecting every dirty secret, every buried report, every sad story. I stayed loyal so they would trust me with everything. But I couldn't move until the man in charge was better than his father. I tried to make you into him, Richard, because I thought that was the only way to survive. But tonight you became your own man." He looked at me. "And you, Laura. You were the key. Your story was so pure, so undeniable. Sterling thought he was using your past against Richard, but he was just handing me the sword. The Victims Fund isn't just a PR move. It's an open invitation. It legally voids every non-disclosure agreement my father ever signed. It gives a voice back to hundreds of families from Miller's Creek, from factories with unsafe machines, from drivers forced to work too long. Your husband wasn't the first, Laura, but because of you, he will be the last." I sank onto the bottom step of the grand staircase, my legs unable to hold me. My fight, my small, desperate bargain for my son's life, had become something so much bigger. David's death, it wasn't just a senseless accident anymore. It was the spark that had lit a fire of justice for so many people. My pain had been given a purpose. A sob of grief, of relief, of pure, shattering awe, broke from my chest. Richard walked over and slowly sat on the step beside me, not touching me, just being near. He was silent for a long moment, processing the truth of the world he'd been living in. All those years, he said to Rahul, his voice hollow. You were right beside me. I never knew. You weren't ready to know, Rahul said simply. He placed the picture frame back on the table. Now you are. The foundation is yours. The real work starts tomorrow. He looked at his watch. Leo's surgical team is on standby. I should make the final call. He turned and walked away, leaving Richard and me alone in the quiet hall. I finally looked at him, at the man I had hated, pitied, and trusted, all in the space of a month. You're free, I said. A slow smile spread across his face, the first truly happy expression I had ever seen on him. So are you, he said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a single, folded piece of paper. It was our contract. He held it out between us. 30 days. That was our deal. I took the paper from him. My hands were steady. I tore it once, then twice, the sound loud in the silent house. I let the pieces fall to the polished white floor like snow. It was over. I'm going home, I said. After Leo's surgery, after he's strong enough to travel, Maya and I are going back to Kingston. He nodded, his smile fading slightly, but he understood. I know. He stood up and offered me his hand. I took it, and he pulled me to my feet. Laura Jones, he said, his gray eyes clear and honest for the first time. It was a privilege to be your fake husband. I felt a real laugh bubble up inside me, a sound I thought I had lost. Richard Davis, I said, my hand still in his. You weren't so bad yourself. We stood there for a moment, two people from different worlds, bound together by a tragedy and a lie that had, somehow, led us both to the truth. The 30 days were not over. But our story, the one written in a contract, had ended. And a new one, unwritten and uncertain, was just about to begin. The next morning, the world was still spinning, but the ground beneath my feet felt solid for the first time. Leo's surgery was scheduled. There were no more conditions, no more contracts. There was only the quiet, terrifying wait. I sat in a small, private waiting room at the hospital, the same kind of room where I had first met Rahul, where my life had been sold. But this time, I wasn't alone. Richard sat in the chair across from me. He hadn't left my side since we'd arrived before dawn. He just sat, a silent guardian, his presence a quiet comfort I was surprised to find myself needing. He didn't try to fill the silence with empty words. He just shared it with me. Hours ticked by, each one a lifetime. I stared at a small scuff mark on my shoe, tracing its outline with my eyes, focusing on that one small thing so my mind wouldn't fly apart into a million pieces of fear. He told me once, I said, my voice a dry whisper in the still room. Richard looked up, his attention immediate. David. He told me that a heart is the only thing that gets stronger the more you give it away. My eyes filled with tears, blurring the scuff mark on my shoe. Leo has his father's heart. He's a fighter. Richard leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. He gets that from his mother, too, he said softly. He looked tired, but the exhaustion was different now. It was clean. He had spent the night on the phone with Rahul, dismantling one life and starting to build another. He had spoken to board members, lawyers, and the press. He had faced the storm he had created, and he was still standing. He was a different man from the one I'd met in Kingston. The ice was gone, melted away by the fire of the truth, leaving behind something raw and real. A doctor in blue scrubs finally appeared in the doorway. My heart stopped. I stood up, my legs weak. Richard stood with me, a step behind, a silent wall of support. The doctor's face was hidden behind a mask, but his eyes were smiling. The surgery was a success, he said. The new heart is beating strong. He's a very brave little boy. I collapsed back into my chair, a sob of pure, undiluted relief tearing through me. All the fear, all the anger, all the pain of the last month poured out in a flood of tears. I felt a hand on my shoulder, warm and firm. Richard. He just stood there, his hand a steady anchor, letting me cry until the storm inside me passed. When I finally looked up, my vision blurry, I saw Rahul standing in the doorway behind the doctor. He gave me a small, quiet nod. It wasn't a nod of victory or business. It was a nod of peace, of a promise kept. The days that followed were filled with a new kind of quiet, the quiet of healing. I spent most of my time at the hospital, watching Leo grow stronger. The color returned to his cheeks. His breathing, which had always been a struggle, was now easy and deep. He was going to be okay. Maya would come with me, drawing pictures for her brother, her happy chatter filling the room with a light I thought had been extinguished forever. Richard visited every single day. He didn't come as a billionaire benefactor. He came as a friend. He would bring Maya her favorite juice and read her stories in a low, calm voice. He would sit with me and we would talk not about the past, but about the future. He told me about the foundation, about the families from Miller's Creek who were finally telling their stories. He and Rahul were building something new from the ashes of his father's lies. He was finding his own purpose, not in owning things, but in fixing what had been broken. One afternoon, as we watched Leo sleep, his small chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm, I knew it was time. "We're going home, Richard," I said, "as soon as Leo is cleared to fly." He didn't look surprised. He just nodded slowly. "I know," he said. "This was never your world." "No," I agreed. "My home is small and the paint is peeling, but it's full of love. It's where we belong." I looked at him, at this man who had turned my life upside down, who had been both my captor and my savior. "What about you? What will you do?" He looked out the window at the city skyline, a city he no longer ruled. "For the first time in my life, I don't know," he said, and he smiled. "It's a good feeling." He turned back to me, his gray eyes serious. "I made a lot of mistakes, Laura. The biggest was thinking I could buy my way out of my father's shadow. You showed me that a legacy isn't something you inherit. It's something you build, one true thing at a time." The day we left for the airport, the air was crisp and cool. Richard drove us himself. Rahul had arranged everything, making sure our journey home would be smooth and private. As we stood by the gate, Maya holding my hand, Leo sitting in a stroller looking at the planes with wide, curious eyes, an awkward silence fell between us. How do you say goodbye to someone who has changed your life so completely? "I guess this is it," I said. He nodded, shoving his hands into his pockets. "I'll be in touch," he said, "about the fund, and to check on Leo." It was a clumsy excuse, and we both knew it. He wanted to stay connected. "We'd like that," I said. He knelt down in front of Maya. "You take care of your mama and your brother, okay, little bird?" he said, his voice gentle. He had started calling her that after she told him about the red birds in our yard back home. Maya gave him a shy smile and nodded. Then he looked at Leo, his expression full of a soft wonder. He reached out and gently touched Leo's cheek. "You stay strong, little man." He stood up and faced me. For a moment, I thought he might hug me, but he didn't. Instead, he just looked at me, his eyes saying everything his words couldn't. "Thank you, Laura," he whispered, "for everything." "You saved my son, Richard," I said, my voice thick. "We're even." He shook his head. "No, I don't think we'll ever be even." The final boarding call echoed through the terminal. It was time to go. I turned, pushing Leo's stroller towards the gate, Maya skipping ahead. I didn't look back. I couldn't. My heart was a mess of gratitude and sadness, of endings and new beginnings. The contract was over, but the story felt unfinished. 3 months later, I was sitting on my own porch in Kingston. The air was warm and smelled of salt and jasmine. Maya was chasing a bright red bird in the yard, her laughter a melody that filled my soul. Leo was sitting beside me, drawing in a coloring book, his legs kicking happily. He was healthy. He was home. We were home. I had taken the money from the victim's fund, David's Justice, and used it to pay off our house and set up a future for our children. I was at peace. My life was my own again. The past month felt like a strange, painful dream. But every time I looked at Leo's healthy, smiling face, I knew it had been real. A letter arrived that afternoon. The envelope was thick and heavy, the return address from the Davis Foundation. Inside was a drawing, a child's crayon picture of a little boy and girl building a sandcastles on a beach. Below it, in Richard's handwriting, it said, "Building something new, one true thing at a time. I'll see you soon." I smiled, a real, deep smile that reached my eyes. The cage was gone. The lies were gone. All that was left was the truth. And a future I was finally ready to write for myself. What did this story teach you about the true meaning of legacy? Drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more stories that will change how you see the world.